one for this. One for the internet.
Oh, you have questions on those? Is that
No,
what
I
you're
don't
saying?
have. I'm just thinking. Oh yeah.
Oh, you need people that might be here. I'm really glad we got that working restriction down and how many hours you can park everything down to make some reasonable sense instead of having 50 different times.
Yes.
The 30-minute one was one that was cracking up. It's like,
That makes me mad every time I park there.
well,
I didn't even notice it.
this must have been somebody somewhere along the line on the city council made that happen.
How long's it been that way?
Since
No,
I've
but it's on
lived here.
Fayette Street. That's how I noticed because it's
As we drive by all the
because I park. You know, if I'm ever stopping down there, park going towards my house already. I'm already on Fayette. It's on the right side.
I've never noticed
Yeah.
it before.
Nobody really parks there very much.
I mean, I know there's a couple of businesses there. I mean, maybe they just they were
Maybe
there
it was
before, were the type
something,
that
yeah.
could just be in and out or something. So they
Well,
push for
The reason I parked there is when the flower shop was there, or you had a little, whatchamacallit, a little boutique that's there. I just go and get a gift. So, and that might be why they should bring in, I hate to park close to because trying to get out of this place is a nightmare.
Can be.
Because I drive a short car, inevitably, there's like a pickup park.
You have tried to get around.
Go,
Go, go.
Sit there and wait till the other car comes, and we all leave so I can like turn around this way and come out. Which a lot of people do.
I don't know what we have that's.
We don't have any commercial. I thought it'd be pretty cut and dry.
Oh, well,
We don't even
you never know. Sometimes we're just
do. I feel like we need to come and see who we are.
bringing in the people.
Yeah, Brian's new haircut.
That's right. Buzz.
How sharp is it?
I know. I went light tonight. Shirt's kind of tight. Couldn't get the tag on.
I went,
It's raining morning.
Slacker?
No.
I did not feel like changing it up.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Notice of an open, oh, heck, that's wrong. City of North Kansas City, Missouri, regular council meeting, February 5th, 2019. Could we have a moment of silence? Mr. Stewart? Okay, do we have any comments from the public? Hearing none. Consent agenda.
I move the consent agenda be approved, presented.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 12.
Follow up to questions asked by City Council regarding business licensing. Discussion item.
Mr. Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Assistant City Administrator, Kim Nakahota.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. On December 4th, you hosted a work session to discuss the business license process and to entertain a few code amendments. During the session, you asked us at staff level to research a few things and come back with those answers. One of the questions that you asked was how many landlords and property management companies operate in North Kansas City. On October 7th, the City Council passed Ordinance 9099, adopting a new property maintenance code. This new code required all landlords renting units in North Kansas City to participate in a free registration program. The numbers that were shown in the memo are a reflection of where we are within that process, but I'll be honest, we're still receiving some of those applications. So the numbers here, we expect those to increase. But according to the current registration numbers, there are 225 landlords and property management companies with 920 rental units. The vast majority of those rent 4 or fewer units. Another question that you asked us to kind of do some research and come back on is, do other cities require landlords and property management companies to obtain a business license? We actually called around to many of our sister cities, and those results are reflected in the memo. Gladstone, Liberty, Parkville, and Riverside do not require landlords and property management companies to obtain a business license. Independence does require landlords, even if they rent just 1 unit, to obtain a business license. And Blue Springs and Lee Summit do require them if you own and operate 4 or more. Staff doesn't see landlords in the same category as businesses in the city, and a registration program serves the place of kind of keeping track of who owns what, and if there was an issue, who to contact with that rental property. That being said, if the council wishes to, staff would recommend requiring only those who have 4 or more units obtain a business license. Yes.
Question regarding the landlord registration. It's free, but it is mandatory that they do that, correct? That they register, but it is a free registration?
Yes, it's a free registration, but there is a penalty if you don't register.
That's my question. Okay, that was my next question. Can you elaborate on the penalty?
Oh, I believe that it's $50, but I don't, I would be off the top of my head.
Sure.
We can look into that and let you know.
And that would be per property, I would assume. So.
I would have to
Yeah,
check
if
the
you could
ordinance.
check into
It's
that.
been a while since I read it.
Okay, but I like the registration programs.
When did they have to be registered by?
By the end of January. So starting February 1st was the start of the penalty period.
So are we enforcing that this year then, or is there kind of a?
Yes, we are, but I don't believe that we have penalized anyone yet. We were accepting registrations through the end of January, and then we were going to evaluate, which was last week, we were going to evaluate where things stood after that.
Thank you.
I'm not sure we've input everything that we've received by the mail yet.
Thank you.
Yeah, those applications, a lot of them were handwritten, so there's a little bit of fat fingering that into the system.
Do you see any advantage to having a business license? I mean, as long as we're registering them and they have to abide by the ordinances in place for the rental properties, do you see that there'd be an advantage in having a business license of any kind, even if it's 4 or more? I don't see the advantage, so that's why I'm asking.
We don't really. If you all feel like you want to do it, that's fine too. We don't have a strong feeling about this, but for our purposes, we kind of, a large part of the reason for business license registration is so that we can be aware of the business, make sure they're conforming with our regulations. We kind of feel like the landlord registration program accomplishes that.
Do we know how many out-of-town owners there are as opposed to local people?
I don't have that information categorized, but we can come back if that's something you'd
I've
be
always been
interested
kind
in.
of curious. It's not necessary, but if you, on a slow day, you can do that for.
I'm curious about that too.
On the registration, do we feel like we're getting a high participation rate though? Do you think we're getting close to what it should look like?
We had some staff out the last couple of weeks, so I'm really not sure where things stand, to be perfectly honest. But we could put together a report for you about where we are.
Perfect, thank you.
Well, do we know all of the rental properties?
Do we know all of them? I'm sure that there are a few out there that we don't know of, but we sent out over 230 registration forms to known or suspected landlords who owned property here. I think we know most of them.
Wouldn't tax records be helpful in
Tax
regard to
records
identifying
are very
that?
helpful in that. And we know that we have reached some landlords who were not getting their inspections as part of this, which was part of our goal. So I won't guarantee that we've got 100%, but I think that we're in the high 90s.
I'd be fine with not having landlords need a business license at this point.
ask one question about that. If properties fall into disrepair, would a business license help staff at all manage that situation? If you had multiple properties under one business owner or landlord who are falling under disrepair?
I'm not sure what a business license helps us with that we don't already address through some other mechanism.
Some of the penalties I saw here were the licensing division can issue a cease operation order?
That would be if they had a business license, and we don't currently have that tool in our toolkit currently. That would be something, but some of the challenges is that you'd be ceasing a business operation with a tenant, and there are legal parameters that even though that is a business, we still have to comply with. We can't exactly close that house down. There are people living within there.
I understand that.
So any direction on the question of registering landlords? Any consensus, I guess, we're looking for, if you have any?
You mean licensing?
Or business.
Licensing.
Yeah, I don't see any
License.
advantage
Business
to
licensing of
licensing.
Right.
Yeah.
I would agree.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I have one more question. The third and last question that you asked us to kind of come back with some answers on were, do other cities have mechanisms to close businesses that do not have a valid business license for an extended period of time? Again, we called our sister cities in the region, and Gladstone and Liberty, Riverside, and Lee Summit do not. They issue GOS tickets, and that's our current process right now. Parkville does. Their municipal court has the ability to issue cease operation orders. Independence and Blue Springs do as well, but those are more in the administrative. But they do have the ability to issue cease operation orders as well. The staff is going to we defer to the city council on whether this ultimate sanction for chronic delinquent businesses should result in a closure of the business. This is a policy decision by you, our governing body. If the business council does wish to enact this, we would recommend that you implement it at the discretion of the municipal court, kind of similar to a couple of the other cities that are within our region. At the present time, all of the discretion for these type of actions lie with the municipal court system. The judge is the person who actually applies these penalties, and we would recommend that over a staff-driven administrative solution. Yes.
Seems to me that, if GOS, it stands for General Ordinance Summons, tickets are issued, and you still have a chronic delinquent organization. I like the way, it seems to me that I like kind of the way that Parkville does this. Then the municipal court could operate, can issue a cease operation order.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I agree with Fred too, because you don't want to leave it in the hands of you guys. You don't want that responsibility. It seems like it'd be a legal nightmare. Is that correct,
Yeah.
Tom?
That is correct.
I think we should have a mechanism in it.
I like what Parkville does as well, Fred.
Leave it with the courts.
All right, so if I believe we're hearing consensus that you would like to have that option as a option for the judge. So
Yeah.
we'll look into adding that into the code in the future. That's all the direction we need. I think that was just a discussion item. We'll bring an ordinance or ordinances forward to you to implement that. Thank you.
Okay. Number 13.
Approval of settlement agreement and amended operating agreement, City and Knox LLC, Bill number 7372, ordinance number 9169.
Eric?
Thanks, sir. In September of 2014, the City and Data Shack LC, which is now known as Knox LLC, entered into an agreement providing for the company to operate the fiber optic network that the city constructed and operated as Link City. And the company took over operations of Link City in September of 2014. And since that time, the city and Knox have had some disagreements about certain expenditure items. Negotiations have occurred that now result in the two agreements that are before you to be approved by this single ordinance tonight. The settlement agreement provides for the terms under which the city will pay amounts that are owed to NOCIX, and then the amended and restated agreement provides for the payment of a management fee in lieu of calculated expenses for personnel and describes the parameters of that management fee. Staff does recommend approval of the ordinance approving both agreements.
Quick question on it. As far as the, where the city pays the up to 150 cap if there's any losses,
Yes, sir.
their share, and that's after an audit is completed. As far as if there are any surplus, then are we still, that stays the same, still splitting 50/50?
Right. We share any deficits 50/50, and we split any surpluses 50/50.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance approving a settlement agreement and an amended and restated agreement to operate fiber optic network by and between NOCIX LLC, formerly known as Data Shack LC, and the city of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7372 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9169.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance approving a settlement agreement and an amended and restated agreement to operate fiber optic network by and between NOCIX LLC, formerly known as Data Shack LC, and the city of North Kansas City, Missouri.
Number 14.
Adoption of revised stormwater specifications, Bill number 7367, ordinance number 9164.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Public Works Director, Pat Hawver.
Thank you. In June 2007, the city adopted 2 technical stormwater manuals that cover standards and regulations to comply with the city's National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit. Section 5600 of the Storm Drainage Systems and Facilities, published in 2006 by the Kansas City Metropolitan Chapter of the American Public Works Association. And the other manual is the Manual of Best Management Practices for Stormwater Quality, published in 2003 by MARC and the APWA. Both of these manuals have been updated and republished, and staff recommends the adoption of updated versions of each of these as outlined in my memo to council. An ordinance has been prepared for council's consideration.
First reading.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending Chapter 15.52 Stormwater Standards and Regulations of Title 15 Buildings and Construction of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri by providing for and establishing certain stormwater standards, regulations, requirements, and specifications for the city.
I move that bill number 7367 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9164.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance amending Chapter 15.52 Stormwater Standards and Regulations of Title 15 Buildings and Constructions of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri by providing for and establishing certain stormwater standards, regulations, requirements, and specifications for the city.
15.
Amendments to the city's liquor code, Bill number 7371, ordinance number 9168.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Police Chief, Steve Beamer.
Thank you, sir. At the January 15th work session of the council, John Harbrecker, the Director of Liquor Control, and I brought to you some suggested changes to the code regarding liquor establishments. We brought to you that night 5 suggestions. The consensus of the council was to move forward with all 5. 4 of you 4 of those 5 are here tonight for your consideration. The fifth one is the piece regarding the administrative sanctioning as opposed to having a hearing on every violation, allowing a licensed individual to come in and have a conversation with Mr. Harbrucker. That piece of the code is requiring some extra work by Mr. Barzee to get the language crafted the way it needs to be done. And while he's working on that, we decided to go ahead and bring these other 4 issues before you for finalization. So what you'll be voting on tonight is increasing the number of buy-the-drink establishments that have less than 50% sale of food from 12 to 18, reducing the number of special permits that allow an establishment to stay open to 3 a.m. from 8 down to 6, cleaning up the language regarding the transfer of a license from one person to another. We now have the language so it's consistent with state law. You cannot transfer a liquor license from one owner to another. It is a new process every time. And then finally, the creation of the 300-foot buffer between a licensed establishment that has a 3 a.m. special permit and any property that has residential structure or has residential properties in it. So those are the 4 things that you're moving or that you would be acting on tonight, and staff recommends approval of all 4.
First reading.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending Title IV Alcoholic Beverages of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri by amending chapters 4.12 and 4.16 as herein set forth.
I move that bill number 7371 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9168.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance amending Title IV Alcoholic Beverages of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri by amending chapters 4.12 and 4.16 as herein set forth.
Okay, number 16.
Approval of submittal of new sewer pretreatment ordinance to Missouri Department of Natural Resources.
Eric.
Thanks, sir. I'll call Mr. Hopper.
Thank you. On February 7th, 2017, the council approved a resolution to enter into an administrative order of compliance on consent with the EPA outlining how certain industrial waste monitoring violations would be addressed. According to an administrative order of compliance between the city and the EPA, the city must draft a revised sewer use ordinance containing pretreatment streamlining regulation changes. The city has worked closely with the EPA and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources staff to draft the required ordinance. This ordinance is not before the council for formal approval at this time. The DNR requires that the city council first submit the proposed ordinance to them. The DNR will then conduct a public comment process. Once that process is complete, the city will be notified to proceed with adoption of the ordinance. Staff recommends that the city council vote to submit the drafted pretreatment ordinance to the Missouri Department of Natural Resources so they may conduct the necessary public comment process on the ordinance.
Motion?
We have some exact wording of a motion that we appreciate your using on this item.
I move to approve the submittal to the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, the draft pretreatment ordinance for public notice and comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 17.
Proposed changes to on-street parking time restrictions. Bill number 7374, ordinance number 9171.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
Good evening again. At your last meeting, we discussed several proposals for revising on-street parking time restrictions. based on the recommendations of the adopted parking management plan and feedback that we'd received from business and property owners in the areas where changes were being considered. The attached ordinance formalizes the direction we received from you at that meeting and makes 3 changes to existing on-street parking time restrictions. It removes the 2-hour parking time limit on Swift between 12th and 13th Avenues, so the existing angled parking spaces in that block would not be time restricted. It changes existing 3-hour time limits on 20th Avenue and on Swift to 2-hour time limits, consistent with the rest of downtown. The existing unrestricted angled parking on Swift north of 21st Avenue would stay unrestricted. And it changes the existing 30-minute time limits on Fayette immediately north of Armour to 2-hour time limits. We did let people who had submitted comments to us know that you were considering this tonight, letting them know that they had a final chance to give you feedback before this evening. The attached map shows the locations where changes would be made. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance repealing ordinance numbers 6406, 6408, 6808 and 6890, and approving and adopting new on-street parking time restrictions.
I move that bill number 7374 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9171.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance repealing ordinance number 6406, 6808, and 6890, and approving and adopting new on-street parking time restrictions.
18.
Communities for All Ages Agreement with Mark, resolution number 19-007.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Ms. Nakahodo.
So again, on December 4th, the City Council directed staff to bring forward a resolution for a technical assistance agreement with both Mark and the Clay County Senior Services. This agreement would allow us to pursue both the gold and silver level in tandem. The silver level is by far the most auspicious part of the program. It asks staff to go through a workbook, which is included in your memo. It is one of the attachments, and it walks through 6 different categories. The City Council has directed staff to work with the Planning Commission to be the primary source that we will work through that workbook probably over the spring and summer. We'll be meeting with several different stakeholder groups as we go through those 6 different topic areas. Once complete, there will be an entire report, and we'll actually come before the City Council again and do a presentation on our findings. We'll also be pursuing the gold level at the same time. That's part of the technical assistance agreement. And what the gold level requires is for us to apply an all ages lens to a major project. And we will be actually applying that all ages lens to the bicycle master plan, which is currently under development. I am happy to answer any questions.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
19.
Services Agreement for Friday in the Park, resolution number 19-006.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. Submitted for council consideration is a resolution to renew Ken Rummert's contract for coordinating the city's Friday in the Park weekly concert series, which runs from June to September. His fees and other key aspects of the agreement are the same for the 2018 season, so staff does recommend approval of the agreement.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 20.
Fence exception request, 1123 Bedford, bill number 7375, ordinance number 9172.
Eric?
Thanks, sir. I'll call on Ms. Copeland.
We do have in the city fence requirements, and we issue fence permits, and the requirements for fences are contained in section 15.40 of the ordinance. That ordinance specifies in materials that fences shall not use razor wire, but it also provides for exceptions to be approved by the Board of Zoning Adjustment and the City Council. In the process of handling some property maintenance concerns, we were made aware that there was razor wire at the facility at 1123 Bedford. Univar has requested an exception to the prohibition on razor wire. The razor wire there is part of their security plan that's filed with the Department of Homeland Security and strongly supported by our own fire and police departments. The Board of Zoning Adjustment considered this request at its January 24th meeting and unanimously approved the exception request. And approval of this proposed ordinance is the final step in approving an exception for Univar to maintain their razor wire fencing.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing an exception to Chapter 15.40 fences regarding fence material at 1123 Bedford, subject to the conditions incorporated herein.
I move that bill number 7375 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9172.
Second.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance authorizing an exception to Chapter 15.40 fences regarding fence material at 1123 Bedford, subject to the conditions incorporated herein.
Okay, where am I at?
Number 21.
Oh, okay.
Renewal of medical director contract, Bill number 7373, ordinance number 9170.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Chief Dave Hargis of the Fire Department.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This ordinance is to renew the contract with our medical director. The state of Missouri requires that EMS and ambulance services contract with a doctor for the purpose of medical direction to provide oversight and training for our organization. The city is contracted with Dr. Stephen Russell for a number of years. This is just the renewal of that contract. The amounts from the last year are unchanged, so I'd recommend that we approve this contract.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance adopting and approving a contract by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Stephen L. Russell, M.D., for professional medical advisory services and related professional services.
I move that bill number 7373 be placed on second and final reading, passes ordinance number 9170.
Second.
Call a roll.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman? Yes. Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance adopting and approving a contract by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Stephen L. Russell, M.D., for professional medical advisory services and related professional services.
Number 22.
Employment agreement with City Councilor Thomas E. Barzee, Jr., Bill number 7376, ordinance number 9173.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance approving and adopting Sixth Amendment addenda to employment agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Thomas E. Barzee, Jr., City Councilor.
I move that bill number 7376 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9173.
Second.
Call a roll.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes.
An ordinance approving and adopting Sixth Amendment addenda to employment agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Thomas E. Barzee, Jr., City Councilor.
Number 23.
First reading.
Gotta say it first.
Oh, go ahead.
Approving accounts due and payable by
Ready
the
to go.
city through February 1st, 2019. Bill number 7377, ordinance number 9174.
First reading,
Second.
or technically second reading.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through February 1st, 2019.
I move that bill number 7377 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9174.
Second.
Call a roll.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through February 1st, 2019.
Okay, Mr. Eric.
Thank you, sir. There are a couple of reports in your packet, the regular upcoming city items of note report, and also a memo. When the council adopted new sewer pollutant surcharge fees in last May, it asked staff to provide a report on the effects of that after we'd had a few months of experience. So there is a memo in your packet about that. Do you have any questions about that?
It still looks like there's some swings in that, though.
Yes, sir.
Is there any way we start, I mean, is it possible to get that closer to being what we're getting billed? Or is it just,
Shirley, do you have any insights on that question?
I mean, because it shows we're ahead 26,500, but that's also because there was a good month on our side for last month.
Yeah, mostly that's timing issues as to when they take the reads on how much pollution and when we bill and when the water's red.
Okay.
You know, it's a timing
Yeah.
thing. Mm-hmm. So in the long run, if you see it swings back and forth.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the timing there.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if there are no other questions on that.
No, that's it.
And then I just thought I'd give a brief report on the visit that Mayor Stilo and I had today. Mayor Stilo and I traveled to Jefferson City today to provide testimony to the Senate Progress and Development Committee of the legislature regarding the Missouri Video Lottery Control Act. I provided some information to you about that last week. It is a bill which would allow for placement of what are essentially slot machines in a variety of different kind of local businesses, convenience stores, bars, taverns, veterans halls, all kinds of areas. This was done in Illinois a few years ago. It would, we feel, and Harris feels, be a threat to the casino, and of course that's an important part of our livelihood here in North Kansas City. So we did travel down there to testify against the bill. We did take the opportunity while we were there to visit Senator Arthur's office. She wasn't in the office right when we got there, but a moment later she did arrive, but she wasn't able to talk to us because Governor Parson was accompanying her, and he had something he wanted to talk to her about. So we said hello to him, but we left Senator Arthur to her conversation with the governor. We also visited Representative Rogers' office. He was in. He did speak to us, did indicate support for our position, so that's good. And then we did testify. I testified on behalf of the city. Kind of hard to tell exactly where the committee might be right now based upon the questioning. A lot of people there, standing room only in the room. A lot of industry folks there in favor, but also quite a few people there to speak against. So we'll keep you apprised as to that and other similar bills move forward.
Eric,
Yes, sir.
a question on that. Thank you for visiting those legislators. At our conference next week, and the legislative conference, are we going to be visiting them? Do you know?
Yes, we have a meeting set. There is time set. This year's conference is being done a little bit differently, in part because of the new rules regarding lobbying, which don't allow cities to buy a meal for legislators, or at least we want to be on the safe side. So this year, in the afternoon session on Tuesday, there is time built in to visit your legislators, and we have made an appointment with both Senator Arthur and Representative Rogers together on Tuesday afternoon.
Thank you.
That's all I have, unless there's anything else.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Crystal. Also, I did mention this to you. We did receive a communication yesterday from a charity that this is the Northland Shepherd Center that indicated they had submitted an application to us, and that they were wondering what their allocation was. City clerk has no record of having received that application. They did, sometime after I sent you an email yesterday, actually send us something which indicated that they had sent it to us on the last day, although still the city clerk has nothing in her email that indicates she received it. So we don't know what explains that. But we did want to ask you if you had any inclination to make any, it's not too late. If you wanted to make any changes in the allocations that you had previously decided on, we could then bring that forward to you for your, for you to reconsider, for your formal reconsideration. So I don't know if you'd had a chance to take a look at that and if you have any thoughts on that question.
I do. I think they would set a bad precedent. Clearly, we've gone through everything we can, emails, we've looked at whether anything's come in the mail. I mean, you know, it's unfortunate. It's a really wonderful organization. I'm not against the organization, but there's nothing there that indicates that we didn't do our part on our end in an opportunity to review it. And if we start doing this time, you know, when are we going to end it? You know,
I would have to agree with that. I fault mainly the post office. We've always had problems with the post office in North Kansas City for a lot of reasons. And I think there was something that went haywire in that direction. That's just my personal opinion, but I agree with Councilwoman that it's just luck of the draw.
I also agree that, you know, certainly you don't want to wait till the last day to send something in. I'm sure it's a good organization, but if we don't have a record of it, I agree with Bill on our postal service. It's getting worse and worse. You know, when I was on vacation, stopped the mail, but the mail kept coming. So, and we've already made the allocations, and you know, it's been made public, I think,
And it's not that it's a fledgling organization that's going to not know where their next dollar's coming from. They're a very well founded and funded business or 503c that they'll survive it. It's just too bad that we couldn't, because they do a wonderful job over here north of the river. It's just too bad it happened to them.
Well, thank you. Again, we just felt an obligation since they did provide some evidence that they'd emailed it to us to see how you felt, but we'll let them know, and thank you for that.
We'll make it up to them next year.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
You won't be on the council,
I know.
sir, so
I want that on record.
all right, thank you for that direction. That's all I have.
I agree with the other was that I wanted to make a suggestion maybe to Crystal that maybe next year to communicate, I don't know if we communicate with them or not. I mean, everybody, not just them. But if you send this by email, request a receipt
We
have
in fact made that suggestion, and I think next year we will kind of make that part of the application process to actually have them do that, because I agree that would have probably resolved this particular
And I agree
issue.
about the post office, you know, on 24th and 25th at least, where I live, we're a training route. Sometimes sometimes they haven't run yet. You know, there's no regular people on it. I get other people's mail all the time. I deliver it the next day, you know.
We get ours at 8 o'clock at night.
But to have it email not received and mail not received, you know, it's kind of funny to me.
And then get it the last day, somehow there's a receipt of it showing up on the last day of application.
It's too bad.
I think someone forgot, and that's unfortunate, but.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome our student tonight and our scouts. I like it when you know, young people take an interest, you know, and welcome to you. I drove down the Diamond Parkway today. I see we got our no truck signs up, and I didn't see any trucks. I did see a policeman waiting for a truck, I think. Well, the one house that burnt last year on 24th Street, the 1000 block, they moved into it this week, and so that's finished. I guess it's finished, but they're there. And the house that burnt on the 1200 block of 24th Street. It was a bad year for us people on 24th. They have started to, they demolished it, and they have started to rebuild that house. So progress is moving right along, I guess. That's all I have.
Well, I too would like to express appreciation to the student attending and also the scout, and appreciation to Jeffrey Jenkins, who accepted appointment as an alternate to the Board of Zoning Adjustment, and Marilyn Carnes, who is accepting appointment to the Police and Fire Personnel Board. And another thing is, last month, I guess it was, first of the year, you know, the sewer rate was increased. We've been over that, but sure enough, I got a telephone call concerning that. And I tried to explain it as best I could. The way I understand it, you know, we don't have obviously, we don't have control over the cost when you have a monopoly, when you're dealing with just one seller of a product. But sewer rate went up 12%, and we tried to offset it, what we have control over, by lowering the cost on the water bill, your water 5%, which still your overall utility bill would increase 4.5%. And I hope I was telling them right, because that's what I explained. And that's all I have.
Nothing this evening, sir.
I do want to welcome the student and the Boy Scout as well. As I said before, it's the first time I got an interest in municipal government was attending as part of my Boy Scout merit badge. I want to welcome them, as well as thank our helpers that have been helping set up our meetings. Been doing a
Community
great job.
service girls, yes,
Yeah.
they left. I don't know how.
I know,
they
I didn't
left,
see them out
I
here,
didn't
but they-
see them either, but they're gone.
And that's all I have tonight.
I just have a question more than anything. It's sort of a frivolous question, but do we have any rules on when we have to take down our Christmas decorations? I'm assuming not, but on my particular block, it's Christmas continuing. And I'm starting to get some comments, and I said, I really don't think we have an ordinance indicating when you have to take your Christmas decorations down.
As long as they're kept in good repair.
Oh, that is a matter of opinion.
I mean, but if they would meet the criteria for junk or debris, or weren't, you know, but otherwise, we don't really regulate decoration.
I kind of figured not. But I had to ask the question, so I've asked and been answered, so now I know what to tell these people. That's all I have.
I just have a couple things. One, I want to reiterate some of the comments about the new board members and also the guests in the audience tonight. And then I just wanted to make sure you all know that I will be traveling in March, and I will not be here for the first meeting, and maybe not the second meeting, because my plane actually arrives right before the meeting. So just want to make sure you are aware of that. If you have anything controversial, please put it on the March agendas, and then I'll catch up when I get back. No, just
Get your
kidding.
paycheck docked for that one.
No, but I have an opportunity to travel, and I'm taking it.
I don't blame you. I got just a couple of things. I was wondering, are we having any problems with the 16-wheelers and 18-wheelers and 20-wheelers going down Diamond Parkway? I saw a couple of huge trucks the other day, and I don't know whether they were coming. I didn't catch where they were coming from. Maybe the new professional building that's going up or something. But boy, that guy was really hauling the mail.
Trucks have found Diamond Parkway to be a shortcut, and we are addressing it when we have time. We're working it. Al Boland, who is our commercial vehicle enforcement officer, is spending time down there, but it will be an education process that we will deal with for a while. I think as more businesses start to get developed down there and traffic associated with those businesses increases, it will be less expeditious for the trucks to go that way, simply because of the local traffic in the area will become a little bit of a challenge for them. but for the time being, it's a problem and we're working it.
I didn't know if he was delivering something down there at the building or not, so I was gonna make a citizen's arrest, but the Suzuki wouldn't keep up with him, so.
I'm glad it didn't.
If I could add to the chief's comments on that question. So we did put, as Councilmember Stewart mentioned, we did put our signs up on Diamond Parkway.
Yeah.
But we also want to put up signs in MoDOT right-of-way on 210 and 16th Avenue. But in order to do that, we have to work with the Department of Transportation,
There you
and
go.
nothing is easy with the Department of Transportation.
No.
So we continue to work on that aspect of it. But the one part we could control is putting up signs on our own street. So that may also help when we're able to do that.
Another question I had for the chief of the fire department, are you still giving the NIMS test for people? We have some council people I don't think that's taken the NIMS test. Have you guys all taken the NIMS test?
700?
Okay, I stand corrected.
I took one of them online. I don't
Okay,
know. I think I submitted it to,
okay, that's all. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was up to snuff on it. Good, good. And finally, I do want to thank Kim Nakahodo for the efforts that she's put out on this Community for All Ages. I just really respect that. You're doing a great job on that. It's just a nuance that the little community of North Kansas City can add to embellish our picture regionally. And I think it's good for the city to have those little things that come up and make us look a little bit better in the eyes of the public. So thank you very much for what you're doing. That's all I had.
Got a couple of things. First of all, again, also reiterate the comments to welcome our student and our scout with us today. I had a question as far as also the board people. I wanted to recognize them that are coming on the boards. A while back, the mayor had asked a question about the lettering on the archway sign for our archway sign there on Armbur. Have we contacted anybody, the design company about that?
I did get in touch with the project manager for Star Signs. They were the sign fabricator. She said that she would talk to their designers about it, and I haven't heard back from her yet.
Okay.
I'll follow up, but we did ask that question, and they said they would look
They'd look
into
into
what
it.
might be
Okay.
possible.
So it's
What was the issue with the lettering?
the letters don't really show up at night.
Oh,
as
at
far
night.
as
It's hard to-
We're not optimistic, to be honest with you, sir. It's just sort of the design of the design of the sign that was put in properly, but it didn't include lighting around the letters. So we'll see what Star Sign says, but we're not.
or even doing lighting around the letters or paint them white.
Well, we'll see if there's anything that they would say that could be done. We'll let you know.
Okay. And then, as far as I know, you usually give us a YMCA report. Are they working on their final report for us?
Yes, they are still working on that. I'll remind them again that
No,
they
that's fine.
always.
I just,
Because that'll give us the information for the whole year when we get the last
Absolutely.
month's report.
See how we did. I'm interested to see how we did. The only other question, have we put up any new wayfinding signage yet? Because I thought I saw some new signs, but it could be me.
No.
We have not, okay. Forget I said anything. And I'd just like to reiterate Rick's comment about the mail. We are a training route in some areas, and there's really nothing that we can do to put any pressure on the mail to have better service in North Kansas. As a city, is there anything we can?
We, along with the business council, have had meetings and discussions with the supervisors of the current branch. They've indicated their desire to do better, and occasionally, I don't know if
Maybe we
Rich
can take it
Groves
higher
has
than-
any other thoughts, if he's heard anything different, but I think we saw some improvement right after the meeting, but we still hear things.
Or maybe going above their head for, it's become a chronic issue. And, I don't know what we can do, but, it's an issue for constituents. So that's it. That's all I got.
Well, the highlight of my day was I shook hands with the governor. That's all I got.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?